Hello, I'm Jack Rickard. This is Electric Vehicle Television. We have a couple of quick items. Nissan has celebrated their 75,000th sale in the U.S. to Raishab Mahandru of Portland, Oregon. Mr. Mahandru was previously a leaseor of the Nissan Leaf and had a 30-mile one-way to his job at Intel in Portland, Oregon, and has enjoyed the car, and so he bought one and became the 75,000th owner. One of the things I found interesting was what Nissan refers to as the cul-de-sac effect. We've been talking about this from the first days of electric vehicle television, in that the most effective way to further the cause of electric vehicles is to actually take somebody for a ride. And what Nissan is finding is that most of their new customers come from their old customers. Basically, it's a breakdown in the ability of the American public to believe anything that corporate America says. But they will believe their neighbors at the end of the cul-de-sac. And Nissan's Leaf appears to be catching on slowly. BMW is already starting the parade, and we've seen some of this in the past. With electric cars not yet established, all the automakers are trying to strive heroically that they invented it. It's going to be a little difficult to do, but they don't mind because they subscribe to George Carlin observation that if you take the average intelligence of the average man on the street, understand that half of them you'll see today aren't that smart. And so BMW has an interesting clip about their lead-acid BMW 1602 introduced in 1972 as their claim to the history of the electric car. Let's take a look.
During the 60s, it was recognized that pollution was becoming an increasing problem in urban zones. In the United States, especially in California, it was decided to regulate the emissions. This was also recognized in Europe, which led to the development of alternative fuel sources and new propulsion methods. Especially BMW started their research of regenerative engines and, above all, the development of electric mobility. The aim? Investigating the suitability of an electric drive unit for everyday driving. The base for this experimental vehicle was the BMW O2 series. BMW decided to use normal car batteries as an energy source, the 12-volt batteries, which are used in every vehicle. They linked them together to create one large battery cell. They also used a pre-existing electric engine from Bosch, and suddenly the electric vehicle was born. The battery pack consists of 12 standard batteries and weighs 350 kilograms. It can be replaced with a freshly charged pack or recharged directly. BMW only constructed 2 experimental vehicles. The public didn't know anything about them. The BMW Electro was presented to the public in 1972 during the Olympic Games in Munich. It escorted the long-distance running competitions like Olympic walking or the marathon. The advantage was that there were no emissions and the runners could breathe fresh air. But even though it was only a small appearance during the Olympic Games, the impact was huge. Starting then, BMW had an increased focus on electric drivetrains and over time built a lot of different models, which became the foundation for today's BMW electric vehicles. The BMW 1602 Electric is seen as just a first attempt at development, rather than a viable solution, but it was the birth of electric mobility. The engines of today's electric vehicles work not very differently than the first ones. The energy storage has been vastly developed. Today, lithium-ion batteries are used, which is a big step forward from the simple lead-based batteries used in the past. The BMW 1602 Electric is a milestone in BMW automotive history because it was the first vehicle where BMW tested alternative propulsion methods.
They actually featured the car in the 72 Olympic Games in Munich, and it is a nice-looking vehicle. Of course, they made two of them as a thing. Elon Musk, Tesla. Let's see what all we have here. He announced a Twitter that was going to change the world. Turns out it was kind of a yawner. He announced a version 6.2 software upgrade for the Tesla Model S that would deploy some map features that made it more difficult to run out of charge. It was really kind of a goofy thing. He did talk more about autonomous driving in the future, and he's very much in tune with that, and is talking about a version 7 upgrade that will have auto steer even for the existing cars with no more sensors than they have now. I guess I've already gone on record as saying I think this is a mistake and probably a fad. I can see some utility for the function of like pulling up next to a parallel car parking slot, getting out and telling your car to take care of parking itself. I could buy into some of that. There's some specialty items. But the car driving itself, and in Elon's mind, driving itself much more safely than you and I drive it, flies in the face of a number of things. In America, anyway, people like to drive their cars. For example, in much of the third world, to have a big car, you typically sit in the back and have a driver as well. In China, for example, a parking spot for a car can run $13,000 to $15,000, but a full-time driver for a car is between $3,000 and $4,000 a year. And so they've even talked about doing a stretch version of the Model S for the China market. There's some regulatory issues, of course, but the central issue is a centuries-long theme that most auto accidents are caused by the driver and not by a mechanical breakdown. And to make the case that a mechanical breakdown actually caused it, you've got to have expert testimony for days to make that case, because it's just so much assumed that somehow the driver was the cause of the accident, much as pilots are usually the cause of the accident in an airplane. Our entire legal system is based on this. Our insurance system is based on this. And the manufacturers are generally get a complete pass on collisions. They simply are not looked askance unless there's some pattern of cause, like the ignition key turning off a lot in mid-stride, or a runaway throttle that can be documented by hundreds of people. Lacking that, when you have an automobile accident, the assumption is that it was either you or the other guy who was to blame, at fault, and liable for the damages. And our insurance structure and our court structure is all based on this. Why a manufacturer would then want to introduce the concept of the car driving and taking responsibility for that, and the legal quagmire of who was actually driving, me or the car, and confusion deriving thereof. But wait a minute, I thought the car was driving. I saw it on the website and on YouTube. Is completely bizarro, and it drags manufacturers into the quagmire of liability and over auto accidents. Now, at the same time, they quaver at the thought of our right to repair causing them liability for their cars, but they'll swallow whole the concept of becoming responsible for the actual operation of the car. Methinks they protest too much. Speaking of which, I caught a little bit of a video I'm going to steal here, just a small excerpt from. It's the GPU Technology Conference and an interview by Jin Sun Hong, who is interviewing Elon Musk, and they get into the concept of car security and car hacking. Let's take a look.
Yeah, and so one last question, and it has to do with, I guess, something that a lot of people are very concerned about, which is your car becomes a software platform, and software platforms get hacked. How do you think about that? How do you think about security, and what are some of the things that we could do to try to make the car more resilient to security attacks?
Yeah, I think that becomes really important when the cars are fully autonomous. I mean, the way the cars work right now, every system in the car, it's assumed could actually have a mechanical failure of some kind or a logic failure, a fundamental logic failure. So you can always overwhelm the braking of the car with your foot, and you can overwhelm the steering wheel with your hands. So, but when there isn't a steering wheel or there isn't, a brake pedal or something like many years from now, then it's really dangerous, because but even as it is right now, what we spend most of our time on is making sure that it's very difficult to do a multi-car hack. Like if you have direct access to a car, just like if you've got direct access to a computer or even a conventional car, you can do a lot of things to it. But that's less of a concern than somebody being able to hack an arbitrary car or multiple cars. So that's what we focus our energy on, is making sure that in that ways it's a lot like a cell phone or a laptop. You focus on making sure that they can't, or that it's very difficult for there to be any kind of system-wide hack. So we put a lot of effort into that, and we have third parties try to attack it. And then certain parts of the car at the very fundamental level, like the drive unit controller or the steering controller, have an additional level of security. So somebody may be able to, hack something that's cosmetic, but it's much harder to hack something that's actually physically dangerous. There's multiple levels of security.
Yeah, and so this way, if you were able to penetrate maybe the infotainment system, it doesn't allow you quickly, as a result of that.
Right. I mean, it may display a funny message or something, but you would not be able to then control the steering or the motor.
Yeah. Well, the future of cars is so exciting, and the work that you guys are doing are so exciting, and it's great to see you guys pioneering these computerized cars. I mean, a lot of people think about Tesla as the electric car, but I think it's obviously more than that. It's an electric car, but it's a whole computer platform on top of that.
Yeah, I think Tesla's sort of the leader in electric cars, but I think we'll also sort of be the leader in autonomous cars, at least autonomous cars that people can buy. And we're I mean, if there's anybody interested in working on autonomous cars, we'd love to have you work at Tesla, by the way. So we're going to put a lot of effort into automotive autonomous driving, because it's just going to be the default thing. Yeah. And it could save a lot of lives. Yeah, to save a lot of lives, and hopefully one of these days, it would be nice if NVIDIA's campus has no parking lot. Yeah. Right, that it drops us off and it meanders off to a place where the land's a little cheaper, and parks a whole bunch of cars there, and when it's time to go home, we summon it to come. It will be extremely transformative, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to AI, I'm not really worried about sort of narrow AI like autonomous cars or.
Very interesting. It poses some challenges, but I agree with Elon that the sole opening there is the interface with their GSM and web service and so forth. If I wouldn't want other people hacking on my car, but I would want to be able to do so. And he seems to draw a line there, although he does mention extra security for the drivetrain and the steering system, which is curiously timely. This week, And I have been predicting this for a very long time, guys, and it's here, slowly emerging, but it's happening with increasing rapidity. This week, I acquired an entire Tesla drivetrain, motor, inverter, gearbox, and drive shafts on eBay for a little under $7,000, plus $400 shipping. In fact, I went back to the guy and signed up for the charger and the cables and the charging inlet, which he is going to send likewise for another $1,400. And so the concept here is in 2015, I'll probably push my Leaf test bench to the down the list and move the Tesla Model S test bench up the list, simply because it's sexier, and I know you're going to want more on that. Can we make it operational? I have to say I've got some emerging stallions in the tribe here. This is our Ebenspraecher, which I'm taking lessons from one of our German viewers on how to pronounce. He's actually sent me an MP3 file. Our Ebenspraecher heater, and Mark Weisheimer has continued his valiant efforts using the single wire can and kind of a hacked up CAN Dewey board. He sent me one. I have not hooked it up yet. He's got it heating. What Mark basically does is take a capture from a volt with all the CAN bus codes in it and simply send it to this heater over the one wire at 33.3 kbps. This is sort of the brute force technique. And then he starts withdrawing messages until it doesn't heat anymore. And then he'll put that last one back in and just sort of in a brute force fashion, trying different message combinations, gets it down to the 2 or 3 messages that are needed to make the device do what we want to do. And then we start looking at those messages and puzzling through them, and I and Colin kind of take over then and start running various intuitive and mathematical processes on them to see, if we can divine what the guy was thinking that coded it. And
hello, I'm Mark Weisheimer. I am here with the Chevrolet Volt coolant heater made by Ebenspraecher, and or however the hell you say their name. At any rate, I'm going to be going through how we do some of the things we do when we are setting up to see how we can control this via CAN. This model from the Chevrolet Volt is single wire CAN controlled, and I'm using the CAN Dewey from EVTV that Paulo has designed. It's a little modified. This one has a single wire CAN transceiver hacked into it, and then on this setup we've got, ooh, ouch, that's hot. In fact, let's see how hot that is. We've got the heater running. We've got a Pureberg CWA 50 pump. I've got a little bit of plumbing here, a 12 volt supply, a 395 volt Better Place pack, a JLD 404 that I'm recording on a different camera. I'm trying to do some screen capture at the same time. This is a little radiator from a garden tractor, a Honda garden tractor. Was a 2-cylinder, 13 horsepower. It's about twice the size of a normal heater core. That's 164 degrees. Now, I do not have the fan, 175 degrees. That's pretty hot. No wonder it felt so hot. Let me turn the fan on here, and I'm gonna get a little heat because I can feel. Oh man, that is nice. I am not able to get full heat full time, so you can see in the side camera that on the JLD 404 we're drawing 5 amps right now, 6. It's kind of all over the map, and this thing still puts out quite a lot of heat. That's nice. I wouldn't mind having that in my regular car. let's see here, we're down to 144 degrees on the heat there. And I'm just measuring the temperature of the body. This is a metal body radiator, and so it's easy to measure the temperature that way. The Chevy Volt heater has inside of it an NTC 10K thermistor that we could connect to probably to the JLD 505. This is going to be one that the JLD 505 is probably going to be the weapon of choice on, because then we can read the temperature of the coolant. Apparently this can't measure its own temperature any other way than through that thermistor, so we'll do the same thing as we go along. I'm not doing anything with the thermistor today, and we're not going to really get too in depth other than the fact that it does come with one, so we're going to use it at some point. It doesn't take much. It takes the high voltage in. This is some cabling. That's the normal connector that comes with it. I have an extension cable coming over to my DC junction box, and then it requires 12 volts, 12 volt car battery, and then a single wire CAN. And CAN Dewey is great for working with that. We're going to use the CAN Dewey today to look at it. And we'll talk a little bit about how we get to where we're at, and what we're going to look for and what we're going to try to do. Kerry Manning made a capture from a 2013 Chevrolet Volt in what's called the preheat mode, and that's where the car's closed up, you're going to go somewhere in a little bit, and you want to preheat the cabin, so you can put it in preheat mode. And he did that, got about a 30-second capture. It's about 10,000 lines of data, and it's stuff full of data, so there's a lot to slosh through. This capture has 145 or 148 different messages in it. A couple of them we know come from the heater itself. I can identify at least 2 that come from the heater itself, and then a couple of them are unrelated, have nothing to do with it, and the rest of them are telling it how much power to produce the heat. So with this, you can probably see on the ammeter, this thing's kind of going up and down. About 15 or 16 amps is a full 6 kilowatts. So we barely hit. I think we hit 12 at some point during our playback of the capture. I have GVRET PC running on my laptop. I'm capturing that. I've got GVRET loaded onto the CAN Dewey, and that's been modified for single wire CAN. I'm using the CAN 1 channel, and Colin's written a little bit of software to allow us to put this in high voltage wake up mode on address 0x100, 0x100. That's the hex address for the wake up signaling on single wire CAN in the GM LAN system. So we've got that built in. It works really well, and GVRET PC works quite well for going back through and looking at it. On the screen, I have a whole list of the IDs of the messages that are in this capture. It starts at the top with 0x100. That's only required once. Once it's sent one time, we can uncheck it. It'll continue to run and do everything it needs. 13FF E097 is the next address. That actually happens to be generated by the heater, so we can uncheck that. The heater, if you turn it on by itself with 12 volts auxiliary, will send once per second at 33.3 kilobits the message 13FF E097, and basically I think I'm on a live signal, just telling the rest of the system it's there. I think basically there's about a half a dozen or something in that, half a dozen to a dozen 13FF messages. I think most of them are other devices. 0x621 is the keep alive signaling on single wire CAN, and that's repeated quite frequently. The rest of the messages I think are basically, a number of them are going to be which groups of elements in the heater at what power level. It has basically inside there 4 modules that it can command on and off. 3 of them it commands on and off. The 4th one, it can command a level between 0 and like 750 watts. So for anything that's 0 to 750 watts, it picks the level in between. 750 and above, it picks a group that is equal to 750, and then 1500, and then 3000. So if you want 4,500, it turns on the 3,000 watt and the 1,500 watt together, so you've got 4,500 watts of heat. And then the rest of it brings up as it's needed to fill in to the top number. We can go through with GV Ret and we can select and deselect these messages that we're going to send just using the straight capture that maybe somebody's provided us, just like this. That's really handy. We can do a couple things, like we can select the playback speed in microseconds. I've got it set to 4,000 microseconds. That's a 4 millisecond pause for characters, and that seems to be just about, when I put it at that seems to play back at just about the rate that I think it was recorded at. It's close. And then we've picked which CAN bus we're going to send it to. We're using CAN bus 1 on this modified system, and that's what we can do with this from this program. We can take away these messages. We can add to these messages. I'm going to go take this. I commented that I didn't think the 13 FF messages are used. I'm just going to start dialing them out by unchecking them on the screen here. And I've got a couple others. 1047, there's a 1047 message. I think the 2FC0CB, I think that is, or the 2F40CB is the actual. I think that's the shut off command, because the way Kerry recorded this, he recorded it in preheat mode for 30 seconds and then issued the shut off command. That only appears once at about the 30-second point in the recording. So I'm going to turn that one off. And let me see if I can find some more 13s. And let's see how, just watch the amp meter, and let's see if we're seeing a whole bunch of differences yet. I don't see any amp meter, so maybe I killed the whole blasted thing. Here it comes back. It goes in waves like this because it's not on all the time. That's one of my frustrations, that it's not all there. But again, that's part of what we're going to try to suss out here, is what's the command that tells it which level of heating to generate. And I took the 13s out and I took the 2, and we're still seeing 10 and 12 amps, which is about what we do. We're still generating quite a bit of heat. We've cooled down because I've been running the fan. I have a giant fan on this thing, and see what we're at this point. We've come down to about 90 degrees on that now, and it is cooler. And it's easy also to go in here and put them all back in. So I just click all, and they're all going to be sent. Let's see if that brings our heat level up. We'll measure the temperature here in just a minute or so, and we'll watch the amperage. I see right there we're already hitting 12 again. We seem to be staying on consistent current output again. And part of what this problem is that it does shut down the current. It seems like if you count the messages, this has got 10,000 lines of messages. It seems like at about 2,000 it starts generating some heat, and it seems like at about 8,000 it stops. So we could probably take the first 2,000 out and the last 2,000 out, and maybe have a little more consistent heat. Let me. I just use an editor like Notepad++. I leave in the 0x100, and I leave in the 621C Keep Alives, and there's a 62C, which might have something to do with a Keep Alive. I'm not sure on that one yet, so I'm going to leave it in. Let me go get a different file. I've taken one and I've trimmed that out, and the way we change that is we go to Load from File. Actually, I'm going to stop before I do that, let's see if we came up any just by, no, not really, not any warmer. Let's go over and load from another file that I've trimmed these out. On the screen, you're going to see that I have 2013 volt preheat. I've got a copy and I've got modifieds. These are different ones where I've trimmed the size, and you can see over here the smallest one, number 5. Let's use it because I've trimmed it the most, and guess what? It puts out the most heat. So what I basically did was watch to see when I was getting current, and and that's all I've done. I have not soused the command structure. I've just looked at the capture that I have When is it doing the work that I want to do? And I've just chopped some things in and out of there. So I'm going to pick back up with that one, and let's see if we run any more consistent on the heat. I've probably got it in sleep mode right now, so we'll have to wait for it to come back around and kick off the 0x100 wake up message, which should occur right there, but I don't see any current, so did I leave the 0x100 in there? Might have it chopped out. No, it's there. Okay, let's see what we get. We're still on can 1. Let's do this. There we go. Speed up the messages a little bit. Double the rate right there. I'm going to go to 3,000. And here we're hanging in at the 6 to 9 amp range more consistently. And let's just watch it now. We loop this one over and over. So we go to the end and start back at the beginning. And I know on this one still, even at the beginning, it cuts down a little bit. But we're running about a third power pretty consistently here. And we go up to about 2/3 power at different portions of it. There it's shut off entirely based on our ammeter. We are picking up some more heat, and I'm going to unplug our fan because it's noisy, and just talk a little bit again about what we see with this. We're back, like I said, we do run more consistent, longer heat with those things trimmed out, and this is the original can capture with the beginnings and the ends trimmed out. I think if you actually look at the data that's in there, I can see a rolling counter that occurs. I can also see that the data fields have far more data at the times that it's on. I can see a group of numbers like the 102. I took a look at some of the 1022 numbers and 1020 numbers, and they had way more data packed in the fields when it was generating heat. So what I'm going to do at some point is now I'm going to take those data fields and I'm going to see if I can see how it's building those numbers into power levels, and I'm going to start generating my own and see what do we need to generate so that we can get full output power, because it would sure be nice, and we're starting to warm up quite nicely here. It sure would be nice to be able to command this thing to full heat all the time. 6 kW would be incredible. It would really be a warm car. It'd take the battery down, but on some of those cold winter days we had this year, it would be worth it during the drive time. It would be even better to do that in a preheat mode, where we would either set up JevQ or Kanduri or JLD 505 to generate a lengthy enough preheat while it's plugged into the charger, because depending on what our charger is capable of and what our EVSE is capable of, we could bring the power in through that during the time and not diminish as much on the drive by doing that. So we preheat the car, and then when we go out, we're unplugging and before we actually head out. But the car's basically warm when we get in it, a fully charged battery, and then we have all the heat we want while we're driving, and we're just limited once again by the battery kilowatt hour capability, but you always are anyway. So this should be pretty cool. Stay with us. We're going to get some more numbers as far as what those data fields do, and how do we build those structures on our own to do what we want and have it doing our bidding as we choose. And that's the next stage and the next step. You always got to get to this point. It's always a pain in the butt to find something to use as a heat exchanger and a pump, and you don't have the thing leaking all over the floor, and it's not freezing on you when you walk away from it. And boy, we're getting some heat now. So it's, wow, nice and warm. That's fantastic. And we're back to, I'd say we're back to 150 degrees or so. We're back to 148 degrees. So if we could keep this thing at the 4 or 5 kilowatt level steady, I would keep that temperature even with that big honking fan on it. And you're going to use a smaller heater core than that. That is much larger. This is about 12 by 11 by 7/8 inch thick. It is a copper radiator with a copper body, so it dissipates some serious heat, and more than you would see in a heater core. A heater core's half that size, or maybe even a little less. and that's what you heat your car with an internal combustion engine already. So we'll come back at it as we have more data, as we've broken down the data structure a little bit more. But this is a process that we use to get there, and if you have an interest in doing this, please contact Jack and tell him you're interested, and join our group. We'd love to have you. Take care.
And so that's pretty much the case. I think they're going to find the Model S drivetrain a challenge, but a very interesting one. And in addition to the drivetrain that I'm showing you here, we're having some T-shirts made. Now, you can't buy these. They can only be awarded to people that contribute to the hacking of various CAN codes to make OEM salvage parts useful for the rest of us. And so this is the EVTV hack team, reverse engineering your right to repair. Our motto is we can, C-A-N, and we will. And so that's, I'm kind of excited about all that and reinvigorated over acquiring a Tesla Model S drivetrain for about what we're charging for a UQM drivetrain these days. And so a 300 and something kilowatt motor, inverter, the gearbox, and the drive shafts. I can see that on our Nash Metropolitan at about 300 miles an hour. No, I'm not projecting it in a car at all. We're going to set it up on test bench and make it turn using the JevQ and developing an object module for that. So in the future, you will be able to use Tesla Model S drivetrains with our generalized electric vehicle control unit. I think that would be a big bragging right for the JevQ. The Apple computer continues to titillate the world with rumors, mostly not coming from Apple computer. Apple Insider is conjecturing that there is a company called 68 LLC operating in Sunnyvale, and they found a building and with car doors on it and a cafeteria and so forth that they think is where Apple will be developing their car. And apparently this company, which is entirely a paper construct and supposedly owned by Apple, has imported an Italian Fiat 600 Multipla. And 1957 example, this unique bit of Italian automotive history perhaps portends the shape of things to come from an Apple computer.
Rivedo ancora il treno allontanarsi e tu che asciughi quella lacrima. Tornerò, com'è difficile un anno senza te. Adesso scrivi aspettami, il tempo passerà. Una
Governor Chris Christie has signed into law the Tesla Compromise in New Jersey, allowing them up to 4 Tesla sales centers in the state. A company called Mojo Motors at www.mojomotors.com has a state-by-state map now where they track where you can buy a Tesla in the state and where you cannot. Sir James Dyson of the UK is a vacuum cleaner magnate and inventor of the Dyson vacuum cleaner, which has become quite popular. Has announced a $15 million investment in a company I've been following called Sacti3. I first encountered a video panel discussion with Anne-Marie Sastry, CEO of Sacti3, and she made an excellent case for solid-state batteries. And apparently they've been doing some work with thin film metal depositing equipment that's used to print bread bags and stuff, and is apparently cheap and readily available, and purports to be on the road to a solid-state battery that could eventually have huge gains. There's a couple of people already invested in this, including General Motors and venture capital firm Khosla Ventures. But in this new round, Sir James Dyson has chipped in $15 million, and I believe intends to battery power some vacuum devices using these batteries. And so it's an interesting, keep your eye out on Sacti3 and Anne-Marie Sastry. I think there's things to come there. Volkswagen, in the meantime, plans to decide in the first half of this year about a company called QuantumScape Corporation. And QuantumScape has got them convinced that they can do a 700-kilometer range car almost immediately. I see these all the time. This one I'm going to declare foul. It just doesn't smell good. It's a lot like, now it is some Stanford researchers, and they have the chops and so forth, but it's kind of like the General Motors false start with another battery company. I could be wrong, but when you talk 700 kilometers range, that either smells like bullshit or something that's been very near a bull while it was defecating. That's too many miles using today's battery technology. It would be an enormous breakthrough, but they've got CEO Martin Winterkorn convinced that it might be possible. And I got to go on record with the GM Bolt and their 200-mile range. This is a conversation with LG Kim that he's counting on having 2 or 3 years to change the story on. None of this is done. They don't have a battery chemistry sitting there that's going to give the Bolt a 200-mile range, and QuantumScape doesn't have one that's going to give Volkswagen a 700-kilometer range. And that's just too big a thing to swallow. What these companies are responding to is a very huge lead that Tesla has in battery technology. And the way Tesla does it, of course, is with the small 18650 cells, but they wind up with a 1,250-pound battery. That's the slab base on which their car is built. The other guys are trying to work batteries into their cars. Tesla makes a slab, and that is the unibody. Everything else gets bolted to that. It looks like the battery bolts on, but it's almost the car is bolted onto the battery. And in fact, I would posit that the Tesla would be non-viable structurally without its battery. If you took the battery off and put some different batteries in the trunk, the first corner you hit, and the car would twist into a pretzel. And so everybody's playing catch up there, but they're mostly catching up on paper and in their minds. It's non-trivial. We would like to extend our congratulations to Jillian Tinnon of Boston, Massachusetts. Her car was buried in 102 inches of snow starting toward the last week of January. After 7 weeks as an iceberg, she finally got it bailed out. She tried to get the city to help her. She called several tow companies. It snowed on it, and then it froze into a solid block of ice. She contacted her insurance company, tried to get them to do something. She couldn't get anybody to help her at all, and so she was 7 weeks without her car. And once it got warm enough, she herself chipped it out of the snow, of course damaging the windshield in the process. But the car runs, and she's had the windshield repair and has her Honda back now. And so I've got a couple of kids in Boston and grandkids, and they had a similar mishap with some damage to their Yuba electric bike, but they have dug it out and taken it in and had it reworked, and it was all covered under warranty, and I understand that they're delighted to have it back and are electrically pedaling around Boston again, kids akimbo. And but apparently they've had a pretty tough winter there in Boston. That's it in the way of news. This week we have a special segment, a visit from Damien Maguire of Wexford, County Cork, Ireland, a huge BMW enthusiast and a man who does not always take the easy way to electric mobility. Let's have a look. The chick magnet thing,
Well, my looks would...
EVTV has about a 0.0004% female viewership.
Well, at least it's not 0.001%.
That's right. That's what I think.
And by the way, it will have increased somewhat now because Margaret
will be watching.
Yeah, she'll be watching this now.
This one guy tells me, he says, EVTV has really been the best thing for me. He says, every Sunday night, because your show comes out on Sunday,
Yeah.
I ask my wife if she wants to fool around a little bit, or should I put on some of that Jack Rickard for about 2.5 hours? He says, I'm getting the best sex of my life. She'll do anything to keep me from putting you on.
Well,
Now,
you know,
when Anna comes on, they'll come from the other room and come in and watch.
yeah.
And then as soon as he goes away, they go back in the other room.
Well,
It's
what can I say, Jack? It's just a facet of when you're this good looking. It ceases to be about image, doesn't it? It's just
I've always thought I was a pretty man.
I did when I had hair, so not much longer.
Actually, I was a homely kid, and I had to learn special techniques. But I've had really only 2 women in my life, and they've both been pretty good ones. I got 20 years out of the first one, and I'm right at 20 on the second one. And I like the second one so much better than the first one, and I can't wait to meet Mrs. Number 3.
Yeah, well,
But if I mention that, she didn't want to hear that.
Yeah, that's
Hello, I'm Jack Rickard, and I'm here with Damien Maguire. Damien is a fearless EV naut from Wexford, County Cork, Ireland. And his lady friend is here in the United States defending her doctorate.
Yes, she is.
And asked that he find something to do with himself and suggested that he come down and see me. And so this is quite a treat for us. Damien's been featured in many episodes of EVTV, and we're kind of fascinated going back to the earliest battery testing days
Yeah,
with the spanner.
this spanner.
And so he has been here with us, came in last night, and we've been playing all day, and finally have taken a few moments to shoot some video on it.
Yeah.
We've been so busy, John, that we almost forgot to do the work part to pay the bills.
That's it.
Welcome to Cape Girardeau and the
Thank
United
you.
States of America,
Thank you, Jack.
Damien.
Thank you, Jack.
And it's a delight to have you here and to see you in person. He's a foot taller than I thought he was. The whole Yoda thing doesn't really work. He's a foot taller than I am, and likes tea, as it so happens.
Yeah, and hot tea.
Well, I'm more iced tea, but
Well,
I
you're
actually had
selling
him
me
going
on it.
my
You're
way a
selling
little
me
bit
it.
on this
You're selling me
afternoon.
on it. I did a bit of iced tea today, all right.
So I've been talking to him. I hear things are going pretty well for you these days.
Well, they're not. They're good. They're going a lot better than they were. And
Is your garage heated yet?
No,
No.
no.
But you like your job.
I do like my job. I like my job a lot.
And he was. It was kind of fascinating. You're in a company that's developing a home mill to process plutonium and have a nuclear power plant.
Well, that's probably going to be phase 2.
Phase 2.
But at the minute, what we're working on is a system to make potable water out of mostly harvested rainwater, but the likes of river water, pond water, well water, that sort of thing. So,
And it cleans it up mostly electronically. A little filtration, but a lot of.
There's some filtration, but the main component in it is electricity. As long as you can supply this thing with electricity, you can get clean, potable water coming out.
And with solar panels,
Yeah,
that can be made and be not a problem.
exactly.
And so a lot of UV and ozone and
UV
stuff.
ozone.
This I had no idea Damien did this. Water, if I wasn't doing EVs, I've kind of got a thing about water. Lloyd Bridges taught it to me. This planet's 4/5 water, and yet a fifth of the population of the world has no potable water within walking distance. It's an issue.
Yeah, it's a big.
I don't mind them starving to death. I don't mind them living in primitive conditions. But I can't deal with the thought of people being thirsty. I've really got a problem with this.
Well, I can see that from the iced tea.
Well, right, he's been with me today. I drink 2 gallons of iced tea a day.
pretty much.
And it's really tea-flavored ice.
It is. But I'm starting to get sold on the taste. I can definitely have to get that recipe for when I'm going back.
Well, I have some serious problems picturing people being thirsty.
It's not
And
nice.
so it's not nice
Not nice, no.
to deal with that. It's like I say, if you want to starve, I'm okay with that. If you want to have religious wars and shoot each other, I'm all right.
Okay.
You want to live in grass huts,
Yeah.
I can deal with that.
Yeah.
The water thing is a little bit of a problem. And so I've actually been playing for years with a design for a solar still, for example. Not quite perfected yet, but
That'd be
still
not
working on it.
for making alcohol. Would it be alcohol still? No?
no, but I learned a lot making whiskey
That's
that
what
could
I
be
figured.
applied
That's
to.
what I figured. I figured there was some kind of a connection going on there. All right.
I make a little whiskey in the garage. It's true, and but I haven't made a batch in a couple of years. I've been a little consumed with this stuff.
All this stuff, yeah.
But,
Bit like myself that way.
So you've got a position with the company doing a rollout new product, cutting edge, for residences. Home.
Yeah, for mainly residences, but there'll be applications for for commercial, so like hotels,
Resorts.
yeah, that sort of thing, and also, I mean, there's a lot of potential offshoots there that that may come into play. So yeah, it's quite an interesting thing to do. It's a challenge that I like. So I'm doing it. I'm still there, and I'm kind of not one of these people that can stay doing a job that I don't like. So the fact that I'm still there probably means that there's something going on in there that's keeping me engaged in it. I mean, a bit like yourself, Jack. If I wasn't buried in the whole EV thing, I'd be kind of buried in this as well as it being my day job. So yeah, I'm happy with it.
And you were kind of led to the day job by the EV thing.
Yeah. There was it was a strange way that it actually happened, as we talked about earlier. It was through a friend that I got literally asked to just deliver something to these guys as a piece of test equipment that I had borrowed, and I ended up staying there. I ended up getting a job, and that's what's been paying the bills, and that's what's been financing my EV bills and all that stuff. So.
But he kind of got in there delivering a piece of test equipment he borrowed, and then conversation about building electric vehicles and so forth.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know,
I'm there. They bought.
You never actually applied for a job there.
No, I didn't apply for a job. They just bought me a pizza, and all of a sudden I'm there. So I'm a cheap date,
Bought you a pizza, asked you a couple questions.
Asked me a couple of questions.
Bada boom, bada bing.
Watched a couple of my crazy videos, and all of a sudden, it's, do you want a job? Well, all right, okay, fair enough. I'll do it, whatever.
Which then sort of leads to a new lady friend.
Yes, yep.
And so that seems to have you kind of bouncy.
I am, yeah. It was funny, like even when I was coming out of a bad patch in my life when I got that new job, and like now I said I've got someone in my life that I care very much for, and she is probably the main reason that I'm here today, because I have a kind of a personality that it's very easy for me to make excuses not to do things, and it was been very easy for me to make an excuse not to come here, and I had planned to be here a lot of the conventions and that, and for various reasons, some of them external to me that I couldn't control, and I'll have to admit some of them that I managed to make up myself.
I'm sympathetic. I kind of have an inertia switch, and I'll agree to anything as long as it's 3 months out.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to actually going and showing up for that, I have a little problem.
That's when it starts to kick in, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, Margaret's up in Milwaukee now, and I'll be going back there tomorrow. And I mean, I still don't know what I don't even know what I'm not even really sure what country I'm in, because my body is back home is something like 4,000 miles away, and I still haven't adjusted to the time zones. I should be in bed by now, asleep. Instead of that, it's daylight outside. So, but no, it's been a good trip so far, and I've really enjoyed finally getting to meet you, Jack, and finally getting here to see everything here, which is really amazing. I've been just blown away by particularly all of this new equipment that's just coming out of all the cars that are.
We're going through some changes. I think it's, always a little traumatic. It's new to our viewers. It's new to me. But my sense is that I'm not. I could be wrong on anything, but it's not likely. They're going to be lower cost, better equipment, and more available. How's this work out?
It really can't be a bad thing. I mean, myself, like when I first looked at the whole thing about EVs and the components that you need to make that happen, you know, what there was in the United States, and there was just, I know it's kind of an impossibility, but there was less than nothing in Ireland and in Europe in general. Like, it's just nothing. You couldn't buy you couldn't buy a Series DC motor. You couldn't buy a controller, a charger, a DC-DC, anything. You could just about get lead-acid batteries because they sold them to the golf cart companies.
Right.
That was about it.
Yes, golf is universal.
Yeah, golf is universal, and yeah.
I've never quite understood this. Maybe you can explain it to me.
Okay, I can try.
In Europe, how much is gasoline in Ireland?
It's came down quite a bit recently, which I find a little bit suspicious in my paranoia department. But right now, a gallon, well, it's priced per litre.
Right.
So it's about €135. So and the dollar and the euro are pretty much the same now.
Right.
So call it $1.40 a litre. You know, for the sake of simplicity, call it 5 litres in a gallon. So you're talking what, about $7.50, $8?
Yeah, $7.
Yeah.
Yet, in Europe, throughout Europe, less so in the UK and Ireland, but particularly in mainland Europe, the regulatory climate is not friendly to experimentation and change.
No. Not at all. Not at all.
Why would that be when they have such a problem with highly priced gasoline, highly taxed gasoline, which is, as I understand it, not really to raise funds, it's specifically to discourage the use of gasoline and the importation of it.
Yeah. There's a number of points of view that you can take to that. I mean, you can put on the paranoia head and you can say, well, it's the protectionism of the whole automotive industry, whose, you know, major shareholders are the oil companies, and you can go around that particular route. And I'm not saying that you'd be wrong to do that. But and I put this in some kind of a sensible way, is that modified cars have a very bad image in Europe amongst people that don't really understand what that means. So, for example, the stereotypical modified car is some guy with a Honda Civic with a big loud exhaust on it. Now, you know, beyond some niches, I don't think anyone would like that. Now, there are people out there that, and I've met some really talented guys that are building cars. Now, all of them, fair enough, they'll be all combustion powered, but are building really nice one-off cars.
I was going to say that at the same time, England has this rich history of very tiny manufacturers.
Yes, but Britain had,
things.
you see, Britain had an indigenous automotive manufacturing industry. Ireland did not.
But Germany did, and France did.
Yes.
And yet these are very restrictive
They are.
areas.
They are. I mean, as far as I'm aware, in France, it's impossible to register a converted car. They just won't.
And very difficult in apparently Holland and in Germany.
Mainland Europe, and a lot of that comes down to the requirement for EMC compliance. Now, a DC motor is basically a spark gap generator. So you're not going to really be well. I think one company in the Netherlands did actually get the Soliton 1 through the Class B EMC requirements.
What's amazing to me is the spark gap generator. I think of this as 50 kilowatt AM radio station.
That's exactly
in
what
Chicago.
It is. That's exactly what it is. It's a 50 kilowatt AM transmitter. Now, at least with AC, you know, the fact that you don't have the whole brushes thing going on, and you have a reasonably enclosed, screened cables, all that. Because I mean, if you look at the DMOC and even the cable that they use from the motor phases, it's that super screen cable, and they've got their lovely glands terminating the screen perfectly. But all of that is for pure EMC. I mean, the motor doesn't care. The transistors don't care. But it's the whole requirement that a converted vehicle must meet the same standards as a manufactured vehicle. From a perspective of, as I say, safety, fine. I've got no problem with that. I mean, I probably put more safety systems into the car than most of the manufacturers do. But
we have safety inspections here, but they're kind of lights, wiper, horn type thing, brakes.
We've got that.
Little tire tread, maybe. You know, that sort of thing.
We've got that. I put
very
cars
basic safety inspection. It's not an engineering type thing.
No.
It's are you keeping your car? Does the horn work? Do the lights work? Does the tail lights work? Does the brakes work? And I don't know of anybody that has a particular problem with that. Of course, we do have some emissions inspections, which are not a particular problem for electric cars.
Was for me.
It was?
Yeah, the first time that I ever brought a car to, it's called the NCT, the National Car Test. So the first time that I brought the E36 there, it failed on emissions.
On emissions.
Yeah, because the computer couldn't read that it was making exhaust gas. So there was no exhaust gas, so the computer wouldn't let them pass the car. So it took a bit of forwards and backwards with them, but yeah, they did. I mean, they were very good.
A pot of chili, and you took care of that?
Yeah.
Pot of beans?
I don't need much to trigger that particular event.
So how did you work that out?
Well, what it basically meant was that I had to do some contact with the higher levels of the company that run NCT and say, look, this is a zero emissions vehicle. And in their defense, they were very helpful. They came back and said, we can put that through for you, and they did. And I haven't had any problem with any of the two present cars that I've had through it, beyond, things like there's a suspension bush gone somewhere, so you need to just change that out, retest, fine. But there's been no problems with the electric side of it. The most problems happen due to the fact that when the car goes into the testing bay, all of the guys doing tests stop, and they all congregate around the car. So then all the office staff see this and thought, oh, has someone dropped dead? So they all come out and they start looking at the car, and then they come looking for me, and then I have to go in there and start explaining the damn car to them. And so you've got rows of people, like there's just cars honking and building up outside the place, and I'm in there talking about motors and boxes and controllers and that.
In the 1980s, we first started putting emissions controls and that sort of thing, and it got to be fairly regulated, and I had a dim view of it. I chafe under any hint of government oppression or regulation or really their existence as a libertarian. But I have to say that everybody I've actually encountered with the police, the highway patrol, the DMV, the thing here in the States have all been kind of interested and very accommodating.
Yeah, yeah.
Almost to the, don't worry about that, we'll take care of
Take
this.
care of that.
Because I think generally people here recognize that this could lead down a path toward a solution to some very large problems. And so are broadly sympathetic. You do run into the occasional bureaucrat. You know, Tesla had a $244,000 fine for not having an emissions compliance certificate.
Yeah, I read about that at the time.
And they made much of it not being an emissions car. They said, this has nothing to do with emissions. You have to have the certificate. And so I thought that was kind of crappy of them. I guess Elon this morning had his big
the range anxiety fix.
Fix.
I'd read about that.
I don't know if this
earlier.
guy's not getting enough Cheerios in the morning or what the deal is, but the big announcement was that there's some software now for the car that maps out charge points and helps you calculate how far you are from them. Well,
I can do that with my phone.
well, you know, like some of the cars, I guess the Mini E or something would like draw a circle on the map.
And it would kind of start diminishing as the range went down.
That seems vaguely metrosexual to me. I mean, it's just it's frill stuff. What's that going to do about range anxiety? So, let me tell you, Mr. Musk, what I'm doing about your range anxiety. Let's put it up on the wall. This AM, actually. Was it this AM or yesterday AM?
You told me last night.
Yeah,
so.
Yesterday AM for a little under $7,000, the fat boy scored the Tesla Model S drivetrain, which I'm advised this afternoon is going on a truck tomorrow and will be here by the end of next week, along with their charger, the cabling, and the inlet port that I bought from a guy salvaging a Tesla. I've predicted all this for some time, but it's coming true. I'm even struggling with the language. One of our German viewers advised me that he winces every time I say Ebenspraecher. It's
he would have wished.
Ebenspraecher.
Ebenspraecher
is how you pronounce the heater. And already Damien wants one after seeing it for 40 seconds. And so we're accruing a lot of the stuff. But yes, it's we're kind of taking it on as a mission. I have a rolling Tesla. Now I have a Tesla drivetrain. We may put off the Nissan Leaf test bench and actually set up a Tesla Maple test bench in the EVTV style. Do some captures and huddle with Colin Kidder and Mark Weisheimer and Byron and Brian and the clan of EVTV hackers and hack team and see if we can come up with a JevQ module to drive a Tesla Model S drivetrain.
Well, when I saw the picture today, I just got this thing, want this, give this. And I mean, I kind of think, as I was saying to Jack earlier, I mean, okay, it's not going to be something I'm going to need now, and it's not going to be something that's in my price range today, but it will be. And I will have one, and I will put it in a damn car. So you get the software done, Jack, and I'll bolt that into something.
He saw the inverter on one side and the motor on the other, and no wires, and he's like, wait a minute.
Now, when I looked at it, I didn't quite get the picture for a while because my brain is still recuperating from the flight. But yeah, I mean, I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
I just think it'll be quite a challenge, and but what a fun thing to have. We can have that spinning my Evcon.
Yeah, well, well, that would suit me. That would definitely
We got
suit
our,
me.
last week I mentioned our JLD 505s. Now this is a prototype, but you can kind of see it has a little power supply cap and a little thing. I think he's being a little crazy, but Polo wanted to put a capacitor, a large 1500 microfarad capacitor.
On the 5-volt rail, wasn't it?
Yeah, so you could, if you lost 12-volt power, you could save to EEPROM before you shut down.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Those guys swapped them in China. And so
Someone-
today,
Yeah, someone had to start soldering today.
um,
Yeah, busman's holiday.
Damien said, well, we'll just, I can do 20 boards in an hour.
I did. I put my foot in it. I put
And,
my foot in it, Jack.
Well, he did him a pretty good clip. We knocked out quite a few. And my solder station has a clog tip,
Yeah, block
so
tip
it
on
was
the
all
solder.
manually done.
Yeah.
And
Which on a PTH
but you got
board
through a
is-
bunch of them, so that's what we've been doing, playing. But it would be even more fun if I had a Tesla test bench
Yeah,
to turn up and
that
spin a
would be
little
pretty,
bit.
because you kind of know the way that I tend to just hold on to these motors and spin them at 6,000
We
RPM.
bolt them down here.
Ah, you've no need to
It's,
do that, Jack. That's too much work. Just grab it like this.
Well, right.
Throw yourself on top of it.
Throw yourself on the grenade to
That's-
save,
yeah,
to save the video
Yeah,
camera.
I
You
just-
know.
yeah,
The,
definitely.
we have a different approach to a lot
We
of
do.
things.
We do.
I'm
We do.
not a.
We do.
I don't consider myself a safety Nazi, but I don't like to be attacked by loose and whipping equipment or melting spanners or
Yeah,
that sort of thing. I did hang up a big rod from the ceiling one time in
Price
the
of
battery
progress,
lab.
Jack.
It's the price of progress.
Price
There
of
you go.
progress. You know, it's the thing is, you know, arms are going to get chopped off, and people are going to get injured, and you know, and I mean, it might as well be me. I don't want to sacrifice anybody else to it, so
Well-
I'll do it. I'll take one for the team.
Not me. I've taken a few in the past, so but we'll have ours all bolted down and so forth. But it'll still be exciting to see it turn. And so I'm gonna look, to me, it's like a symbol of what I've been talking about,
Yeah.
and that's the acquisition and availability of OEM parts that can be replaced out of the global ecoplex of car support now, the part structure,
Yeah.
and at the economy of scale prices
Yeah.
that they have, will change and enable people such as yourself, and myself, and others to do custom vehicles and bring back from the dead the 62 Nash Metropolitan and the 1990 Doka Volkswagen pickup truck and
And a 1996 8 Series BMW.
there you go.
There you go.
And how's that coming? We carried your three-part series on the DMOC breakdown.
Well, I have another part of that I actually did just before getting on the plane, and I got the rebuilt DMOC actually spinning a motor just for testing purposes. I was very pleased with that, and I mean I certainly share what you just said about seeing the motor turn it's very hard to describe, but it just gives you that sense of, this is real, this is going to work, and you can actually put this in a car and you can make that turning shaft drive the car forward. That's what it's all about.
Right.
But the inverter is coming along well. I suppose we've kind of talked about it today too, that I do put my foot in it a lot, and I tend to take the hard route. But one of the particular reasons that I wanted to do that work on the inverter was to see if we could reasonably take a low-cost design. So just leaving the power electronics aside from it, but just to take what is, I think, a very cleverly designed piece of hardware with also some very clever software in there, and put it with a powerful system, and put it in a car and see if it can deliver the power, and hopefully see if it can deliver more power.
How do you think that'll compare the DMOC with what you had built in?
Yeah.
You know, with
built
all the
one-
white stuff and the inductors, and you had quite a thing going.
I
there.
did. I built one inverter out of mainly actually parts that I sourced from eBay that had been I suppose the dregs of the Azure liquidation. So I got things like, I got a couple of the DMOC heat sinks. I got the same capacitors that they had in there. I got transistors. I got basically dregs. But I put together one inverter that I never really intended to put it in a car because it was kind of built in a clumsy fashion. But it worked great on the bench, and you've seen some of the videos of it driving the ZF5 HP24, and I'll be able to shift it up and down. It's, we got the idle function working in it. We got it responding to a Hall effect throttle instead of a pot box throttle and things like that. And
those are really more issues with the board. The power electronics. What do you think the homespun job would have done power-wise?
I hoped that it would be at least as good. I'd like to think that it could be better. The main reason that I would say that is that the software limitation for motor current on this current version is 1200 amps. Now, the hardware can't do 1200 amps, but it can do 400, 500, 600 amps. So it would be very interesting to see what the Siemens can do as we crank up the power on it. Because the DMOC will max out at, 400 amps per phase?
Yeah, 414.
So we can actually push that. Now, you can't, once you hit breakdown torque, that's where it's just going to stop. But we don't really know, at least I don't think, where the breakdown torque is on the Siemens.
That's true enough.
Well,
that's why we're following it kind of avidly.
Yeah.
As I was saying, this is the JLD 505 prototype. We intend to use this as the heart of a system to enable and empower DIY cars, university build teams, prototypers, to do CHAdeMO fast charging. I have not seen the SCAE combo go anywhere.
No, that's,
and I really thought all the OEM EV builders would get on the Tesla bandwagon, and they have not.
Yeah.
So Tesla's out there alone with a supercharger.
It looks to be the case, yeah.
And so, meanwhile, we can fast charge these batteries. Here's my problem. This device has everything I need to do the software to do a CHAdeMO, lacking the Yazaki inlet, which we've actually stocked now in the store. And I think you got one.
I got one, yeah. I literally, I probably got the first one that you actually.
Paulo's actually working on a device where I can make a CHAdeMO charge station out of batteries. And so we'll do that end of it. We're going to do both ends of CHAdeMO. But we don't have a CHAdeMO charge station within 110 miles of here.
I got about 3 of them within 15. So I can do that.
And so he's got several cars and several charge stations. So
It's
we're
just-
sending him home with one of these boxes, hoping he adopts that. and
Oh,
we'll
I'll do
work
that, yeah.
Back and forth. He does Arduino programming himself, and so we'll go back and forth on the software and other hardware. But it's really
Well, I'm going to
the
get
Yazaki inlet,
this and a couple of contactors.
2 contactors and a relay, and
And we're kind of.
I think we're done.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'm going to get that into a car fairly soon now.
what kind of battery pack does the Depenzer have?
Well, it doesn't have any at the minute. My intent is to see how the Renault pack works out. So I'm going to put that in, and but I'm pretty open on it after that. I had been looking at the cam cells as a possible solution to that. So I don't know, Jack, would be the honest answer. I've got to work that part out.
And your round trip drive to work?
Round trip is 72 miles.
Depenzer's not a lightweight
No
car.
no,
You've kind of
no,
worked past
no.
the E36 here.
Yeah, well, even the E39, the 5 Series that I have now, that I call the Land Yacht.
Land yacht?
I mean, that would have had a car weight of 1.7 metric tons when it actually started out. Now, I've only actually added only about another 100 kilos to that, if that. So it's, I mean, as far as that car goes, I have driven it flat, and it will do 110 miles. That's on the CA series cells in there. And that car is my daily driver. I've gone over 20,000 miles in it.
And those are the CA180s.
Yeah,
I
it's
recall.
the CA180 FI cells, yeah.
And how many of those do you have?
There's 50 of them in there.
Okay.
It's and I have this huge 13-inch Series DC motor that came from a guy in London a good few years ago. I actually had it. It came out of one of those huge forklifts that loads the containers at shipyards. So it's just a hugely overbuilt General Electric motor, and it looked when I got it like someone had just dragged it up from the Titanic. So it needed to be completely taken apart and rebuilt and cleaned up and all that. But that motor has just ran. It's just ran like a clock.
Mass in a motor is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, there's a certain amount of it sort of required to focus everything tightly and get it running correctly. In any event, it can be an advantage. So no battery management system or anything like that. Been 20,000 miles.
20,000 miles. They got one bottom balance when the pack was being built. Not dreadfully accurately either. I mean, I built one of those. I basically copied something that I'd seen in some of your videos, which was the 0.1 ohm resistor and the little JLD voltmeter thing and a contactor. And, you know, I literally just clipped this onto the battery, go away, do something else, and in a few hours the battery would be sitting there at, you know, around about 2.73, 2.74 volts. And I just take it up, clip it onto another one, and I did that. I probably balanced out those 50 cells in about 4 or 5 days, and just put them in the car, charged it. I don't even have what you could class as being good instrumentation in that car. I have a JLD 404, which is
Excellent
good,
instrumentation, by the way.
Yeah.
We put a lot of cars on the road with that being it, baby.
When I say that, what I would indicate is that I don't actually use that for amperes. I also have the Bluetooth EV display system that I just use that on my phone that I just have in a cradle on the front of the dash when I'm actually driving. So, you know, okay, I know with the problem with the Hall effect sensor drift and that, but as you've said in the past, Jack, when you're drawing 200 amps, well, whether I'm 10 amps out, who cares? Because all I'm looking to do is what's the car doing at any instant in time, not what it's doing cumulatively. So for that, it works very well, and I just, I literally do what you've said. I just drive it and charge it. A typical trip back from work, because I can charge there most days. A typical trip takes out 70 amp hours. So
Out of 180 amp hour system, you're not even making them breathe hard.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
they should last a long time.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
So we'll follow the Derpanzer with some interest. I think that's going to be a fascinating thing. What else do we want to talk about? The fast charging is going to be a fun project.
That's
I want you to
coming up
work
now.
with us on that. You've got a
will.
little Arduino expertise there,
A little bit anyway. I can.
and close charging stations to
Yeah.
go try fixes on.
Yeah. Well, there's one charging station in the town near where I live. It's about 3.5 miles away. So I can pretty much just, I can just. I'll get myself in trouble with the EV Owners Association by saying this, but I can just park the car there in front of the charging station, plug it in, get a laptop up on the JLD here, and start programming it until it engages the charger and starts giving power to the car.
I've actually got the spec. I don't think this is going to be. This is not rocket science.
It's not.
We don't have to go into the SpaceX side.
No, I don't think so.
to get
Well, you wouldn't want me there if you
to
did
get
that anyway.
a Chatamo charge station conversation to work. They diagrammed it quite carefully, and so it'll be a timing issue or something.
That's what it's
like
going to
that.
be. It'll be.
Or the EVSE maker has done something not to the spec. That's
where it's going to come into play. And there has been in Ireland, there have been issues with certain brands of fast charger. Some of them work better than others. And okay, this is all coming from guys with OEM cars. So again, you would ask yourself, is it the charger doing something a little bit out of spec, or is it the car, or something like that? And it's going to be quite interesting to see that data in real time, from the charger going to the car and the car back to the charger. And I would actually be able to very quickly drive around some of these different makes, because they're very close by to me, and see,
and
grand,
try different ones. Yep.
Yeah, and see,
Well,
is this
that's what I was hoping.
Yeah, is this one doing something?
I think we can proof it pretty quickly with that ability, because I don't have it here. But I do. I don't believe it or not. I'm not real big into public charging. There's some things I want to do in the privacy of my own bedroom. But we charge at home. A public charger here in Cape Girardeau doesn't even make any sense. I don't consider a charger provided by your employer to be a public charger.
No.
And so, I mean, at the mall, the movie, the grocery store, I don't need to charge. And if it was a kind of an emergency and I did, most of the light poles and stuff, if you look around most of the commercial buildings, there's a little 120 outlet anyway. There always was.
Right.
And you just don't see them because you're not looking for them.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So I'm not terribly interested in like J1772 public charging.
Yeah.
I've never been. I don't think we have an infrastructure problem, but I can see Now, this is from a guy with 8 airplanes, so you got to keep in mind that I don't want to drive to California.
Okay.
But I can see intercity travel, like drive to St. Louis, fast charge, and then have enough to make my way
To go
around the
further
city
on,
and go to the mall, go downtown, go to a ball game, and have a beer with somebody and everything, and then maybe stop and fast charge and drive home,
Back home. That makes
which
sense.
is 110 miles.
That makes sense.
And so I'm somewhat sympathetic to the fast charge thing. It looks to me like Chatamo has the numbers.
Yeah.
Certainly in Europe, but really
Well-
here in the U.S. And much ado about the Tesla supercharger thing and how fast it's. We're up to about 170 of them here in the States, and they are building them at a good pace. But to announce on Twitter that he's got a solution for range anxiety, and then it be a better map program on the car, I would have loved to have heard him say, we've had an agreement between GM and BMW and Tesla, and we're going to put in 3 times the number of fast chargers over the next year as we were, to be able to accommodate all 3 of our needs. That would have been dramatic. That we have a better map that can show you how far you can go and relieve your range anxiety. It's like, what's this guy been doing all week?
Yeah.
I've gotten more done than he has.
I probably have too, considering I spend most of the week on a plane. But I mean, one of the things that we have in Ireland are that most of the on-street charging points will do 3-phase 22 kilowatts, and that's actually a reasonable amount of power. You know,
when you have a car that's 35
kilowatt hours, and you're halfway
so
down.
2 hours, you can really
2 hours, I can pretty much gas it up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. See, we don't have that here.
Yeah.
We don't have any in between. There's no Super J70 and 72.
Yeah.
It's we go from J70 and 72 at about 30 amps.
Yeah.
Up to Chatamo.
Up to Demo, yeah.
As the next thing. And the rest of most people's charging is frankly in the garage. And we reported on one 5-year program in California that spent over $100 million on public charging, and
That's a chunk of
and
change.
did quite a report on it that indicated a 4% usage of the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Now that means to me is don't ever spend a second $100 million on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the fast charge thing has a little bit of legs. Anyway, I want to enable our viewers in whatever kind of car they build to be able to do it. And I happen to believe that the lithium iron phosphate cells that we trade in are more amenable to fast charge than anything in the Volt, the Leaf, or the Tesla.
Well, I'd be inclined to agree with that. And one little sub-project that I have in the works is, this is going to be kind of the reverse of the spanner test. Like in the second spanner test, I managed to hold a discharge current of over 2,000 amps coming out of a CA cell. Now what I've got myself and you'll see a video on this hopefully in a few weeks, but I've got myself a very crude single cell fast charger on the bench. And I'm thinking I should be able to kick the guts of 1,000 amps into one cell.
Wow.
So
Wear eye protection.
do I have to?
Yeah, put on a pair of glasses
All
at
right,
least.
Okay. So
Or back away with a camera. 1,000 amps in
I
the
think
cell.
we should be able to do near enough that, yeah.
No, your CA cells are 180s. That would be 6 or 7 C. wouldn't it?
Yeah. So that's going to be an interesting interesting test to do, and I've still got my 1000 amp shunt on my JLD. So I just need to find a way to remember how to turn off the beeper on it, because that was very annoying.
It is kind of an annoying
Yeah, I'm either
beeper.
going to have to take it apart and clip the beeper off the board. That might be the hardware way to fix that
Right, take out
particular problem.
do a surgical removal on the beeper.
What was it?
I could go for that mod. It gets me a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, I've come into the shop and something has set it off, and the guys are like, "Hey, how can we turn off that beeper? Is the battery lamp about to blow up?" No, the JLD 404 went off again.
It's just been a pain.
It's been a good and faithful servant, and it's
I like it a lot.
you know, like I said, I think you can run an oil refinery with it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll be as successful with JLD 505. Have to tell you, we did a little bit of work putting our USB port on the connector that hooks up to this. I'm discouraged by the amount of effort it takes to assemble a connector.
Yeah, those crimp style push in connectors like the amp seal even. I mean, they're very painful to do.
Well, I'm accustomed
Even
to
with
amp seal.
The amp seal is not the worst, because at least when you push the pin into it, it's fairly
I
guided.
can feel it click.
It's guided, and there's a nice click in there, and you can even with a fine needle go in there and pull the pin back out.
Right.
But this thing that we were looking at today, now I suppose some of it is a facet of me being a kind of ham-fisted muppet, but we really struggled.
You look
just to
like a
get
surgeon
those.
compared to the way I do it. My hands and eyes do not do what they once did. You look like a heart surgeon compared to me. And so I'm a little alarmed at what I'm going to have to do to put a connector together on But I have to say, I do kind of like the connector, the way it cinches down.
That's
on
nice. That screw thread in the middle of it is nice. Yeah.
The USB port I've selected has such tiny wires, but what USB port has big
Has heavy
wires?
You don't exactly need 1.5 on a USB port.
Having to put the USB port external is
It's a bit of a pain.
Paulo talked me into that. That wasn't my idea. Paulo did it.
Thanks, Paulo. That was fun today.
And so, anyway, well, I'm glad you came down,
I'm
and we
delighted
continue
I
to
came
follow the Panzer, der Panzer. That means tank, right?
That's it. The tank.
And I'm pronounced Ebenspraecher so bad.
Well,
Ebenspraecher.
Well, if you think that was bad, okay, I used to call them Ebenspraecher or something like that. So that would even be worse. So
Ebenspraecher.
Ebenspraecher. Okay.
And yes, that's what I taught.
Yeah. I suppose.
But I got some correction. The guy actually sent me an MP3 file
with it being pronounced.
with it being
Well,
pronounced.
that's very helpful.
It really was. I was,
that's really
I often get a lot of criticism, but rarely any solution. And he actually sent me a little MP3 so I could practice.
Wow.
So I'm going to practice my Ebenspraecher.
Ebenspraecher.
Because I like the heater. So that's the visit. Damien came down last night. I picked him up at the airport. We spent the day.
Yeah, had a good
He's
day.
discovered Cracker Barrel
Oh yeah.
for breakfast and
Cracker
wants to
Barrel's
go
good,
back
guys.
for
We're
dinner.
going back now, Jack. We're going back
It's,
now. I'm hungry.
He likes conventional food.
Conventional
and
food. Yes.
I decided that must be Cracker Barrel, and I think I nailed it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm delighted you came.
Yeah, I'm really really glad the way that worked out. I'm sorry it just couldn't be a longer stay this time, but I don't think this is my last appearance, and
Good.
certainly not my. I'm in this for the long haul, so.
We would love to have you kick off our electric vehicle conversion convention.
Yeah, I'm trying to
September
press
29th through the October 4th. That's the most beautiful time of the year here for weather.
That's good.
And we've got it kind of locked down. And So
What am I going to talk about, Jack?
the assigned topic is electric vehicles.
Okay.
And kind of from the aspect of converting an existing vehicle to electric. Less so about OEM vehicles, but you can mention them. But we're mostly about converting, and he could be a poster boy for EVTV.
Oh, no, you don't want that. No, you really don't want that.
I don't know. Whatever you think would be an important
Topic.
topic and message
Well,
that
if
people would be
I
interested in.
survive my my spanner charging test, I'll be here.
Well,
You know, a bit like the way the bomb disposal guys work. At least if I don't survive it, you'll see why I didn't.
and
You'll be able to not
and
do
it'll
that.
be our problem,
Yeah, correct.
not
'cause you'll be
really
able to
so
not-
much yours.
Yeah, that's it exactly. That's it exactly.
Well, no, I think it's interesting the way you've walked up the BMW
Yeah.
line to larger,
Yeah.
more capable
Yeah.
vehicles,
Yeah.
and almost traced the evolution that we've described through. You had headway cells in one.
No. I started off with lead acid, and I had I actually spent more money on the lead acid pack that I put in that car, and I got an astounding 11 miles of range in it. And the headway cells were the next iteration then, and there's a lot of learning on those cells. Okay, they have their faults, but I learned how not to use them. And I went through the whole process. I didn't subscribe to your approach to them. I have videos up there of when I was building a BMS, and I was bench testing a BMS. And it's the kind of thing. The way it just kind of lined up for me then was when I thought maybe I'd better test this whole thing out first before I just wire it up to the car and throw a switch. And the more that I got to know the cells, the more of the things that you were saying started to ring true. And that's
Little known fact is our BMS position began with a quest for a BMS.
So did mine.
And I was actually working with a guy in New York on and we were in a forum called Thunder Sky on Yahoo. And his name was Jay, and we actually sent stuff back and forth. Did weird things like, the LED drop voltage on an LED is about the voltage of the cell.
Yeah.
We could use Darlington pairs to amplify that, and where they would it would charge up to that voltage,
and then it would shunt
it
away.
would trigger the shunt to hold it right there. And
Yeah.
some very inexpensive little devices and so forth. A lot of cunning things. Approaches to battery management. And I actually watched one in slow motion, the semiconductor go into thermal runaway very slowly. I had overstressed it, and just as a test, and then turned it down, and it passed the test. And turned it down and was doing something else. And out of the corner of my eye, caught the digits on the power supply moving. And then they started counting. Well, that power supplies aren't supposed to count to themselves when they don't have anything to do.
No,
they're not like they need a crossword puzzle or something. It's just an electric device.
Yeah, they just want to do
They're
one
just
job,
supposed to
don't
sit
they?
there, right?
Yeah.
And wait patiently until I'm ready for
That's
them
it.
again. This one has developed its own pastime, and it's counting up in current a little bit at a time. And I actually sat there over a period of 10 minutes, which would have been nothing had I been asleep inside in the house, and it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning, and watched this thing
Just go back.
go into a thermal runaway, burst into flames, and burn the battery to the bench top.
Oh boy.
And I said, you know what? That's we did not really go over the rating on this device. And then the emergency's over, and 5 minutes later it gets butt hurt and starts to deteriorate and goes out. These number one, the spec sheets are not really to be believed, and particularly in power semiconductor.
Very much
devices.
so. Very much so.
And then what am I doing? I got a semiconductor watching a battery. The battery should be watching the semiconductor. This is 10 times more reliable device than this one. And that began the questioning of the whole BMS thing. And every rock I picked up had another spider under it. And I'm talking to people about their BMSs, and they clearly don't have a clue how the batteries work. And they're spouting stuff that's lead acid mantra and has no application to these cells, and trying to bury me with buzzwords that are just nonsense the way they're using them, and found out that most of the BMS guys are kind of flim-flammy or don't know what they're doing. And so I lost confidence in all that, and that led to all of this the original position was we're looking for a BMS, not that we don't want to use a BMS, but we never got to one. It just we tried to make them, we tried to buy them, and it just was not working out for us. And the deeper we went, the more it didn't work out. Until
no, I mean I've been messing around with electronics for more time than I'd want to admit, and there's one thing is for sure, that you put in more components, you've got more risk of having a failure. You throw in a bit of heat in there, and that just goes up exponentially.
Right.
And I mean, in terms of what you said about the spec sheets, I mean, I get guys saying to me, over the time that I built controllers, I mean, some of the first controllers I built were from big, crude, IGBT bricks that I picked up cheap secondhand. I had guys emailing me saying, hang on a minute, you can go on to DigiKey and you can get a, IR la-di-da part that'll do, 600 volts at 250 amps for $10. I went on there and did it. It's a TO3, or it's a TO203 package. And they're a very common power semiconductor package for PCB mount. But there's two things. The first is that 220 amps is at a junction temperature of 25
C.
If you
and by the way, it's up to you to get it to stay at 25
C. If you
C.
keep it at 25 degrees, then how are you going to do that? You'd need to have the case at nearly absolute zero to make that actually happen. And then in fine print, it'll say package limitation 60 amps. Because the leads in the package can't take any more than 60 amps.
Exactly.
So, that just shoots that all down. But I am doing some looking at the inverter design now. And I've got some ideas to make that a single board, just a one PCB.
Now, what inverter design are we?
Well, this is the kit that I've been working on, and I hope I pronounced the guy's name right, because my German, as we know from the Ebenspraecher, isn't the best. Ebenspraecher isn't the best. Johannes Hufner is the gentleman's name, and I found him on the DIY forum,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, there must be more threads on that than raindrops of guys that, oh, I'm going to build an inverter and it's going to cost $100 and I'm going to sell it and I'm going to become a millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy had actually, not only had he actually designed it,
Mm-hmm.
he had built it, he had put it in a car and driven it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
productized it into a kit,
Mm-hmm.
and was selling the whole kit for something like 350 or 360 euros.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I bought the kit, I put it together.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I had those components that I got out of the Azure auction.
Mm-hmm.
I wired this up.
Mm-hmm.
I was in or about the same time that I got the Siemens motor from you, and within a couple of days, I had it spinning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I recall it.
And it's and the thing that I'm really keen on is that it's not a field-orientated control algorithm in there. It's something called slip control, and I'm very keen to see how that works in that application. And I'm also keen to try to into a more manufacturable entity, because at the minute it's a lot of boards, a lot of interwiring, it's a lot of stuff.
How many boards you have going on
You've
there?
seen me doing it, and you know it's a lot of interconnections. And again, coming back to what I was saying, they're all failure points. And I like to get, when I'm doing PCB design, I want the PCB to do as much of the heavy lifting for me, so to get those parts onto the board, so that you've only got to really connect a battery here, a motor here, a 10-pin plug here, switch it on, drive.
Right. Right.
So, you know, whether that works out for me or not, I don't know, but I'm gonna give it a shot.
Well, it sounds like a fascinating mission,
Yeah.
and I think everybody will be watching with intense interest
Yeah.
how that comes off. I think the heart of a inverter that could be swung a number of different ways. A lot of people would like to experiment, but
Yeah.
field-oriented control, Clark transforms are not are a little beyond us.
No. This guy is definitely not. This guy is definitely not someone that could deal with all that stuff. And I mean, I even mentioned that on one of my videos recently that. I suppose I initially would have steered clear of the whole AC scene because number one, of my lack of understanding of it, but number two, you know, if I wanted to change something, if I wanted to do something with the hardware or with the software, I couldn't do it because I just didn't know how the thing worked. But the more I've played with this kit and the more that I've actually played with the parameters and seen how they work together, it's been just a great learning experience.
So it's kind of educational anyway to play with this guy's board.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
So that's interesting. Okay. Well, Damien, thanks for coming and seeing
Pleasure,
us,
Jack.
and
Pleasure.
again, we look forward to seeing you in September. And anytime you can get here in
Anytime
the
I can
interim,
get here, I'll be here. And,
we've got a shop to play in.
Yeah, well, I had a great time today, and I would definitely like to come back.
First thing he did yesterday was mention Stan Cloyd. Stan Cloyd had been in 15 minutes before, and you just missed him.
Yeah, I wanted to actually thank Stan. You sent me a great book, and which I've been gradually making my way through. It's one of these old kind of books from the 1920s of DC motor theory and repair and stuff like that.
I've got to dig out this book. It was like 1906, and they're talking about how the good batteries will be here in about 6 months.
I've came across that actually.
And then I've got it in the house, but I don't know where.
I've came across something like that, if not the same. But this is a really good book, and it's important because a lot of this knowledge is now going, if not gone, out of living memory. You know, you give a motor to a guy. I'm sorry, I said that it was about DC, but it's about AC as well. And I mean, it's even things like, you know, how you pick your winding arrangements, how you set your starters up, how you do everything in it. And it's a really good practical book. And it's, as I say, thank you, Stan, for that. It's very much appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you, Jack.
We'll be following your Panzer thing and including your videos here at EVTV. Thanks for letting us redo those.
Oh, yeah.
Damien has a YouTube channel with somewhat more extensive videos than we could possibly include, and that some of yours are as long as ours.
Yeah, I've been accused of going on a bit. All right.
So be sure and check out his YouTube channel, and we'll continue to follow from here. Stay with us. I was startled to meet Damien in person. He apparently does most of his videos with a iPhone. And so I thought he was kind of a small guy. He's 6.5 feet tall. He towers over me by a foot. He's younger than I thought, 38 years old. Has a lot of neat things going now, including a new job with a company that makes purifiers for home use for rainwater or groundwater. Fascinating company. He's got, of course, his Panzer project going, and we've been following with great interest as he's using one of our Siemens motors and a highly modified DMAC 645 with this kind of open source controller board from Germany. And so I think we'll see more on that as we go along. It's kind of an interesting turnout. Apparently he can take this board and pretty much run any power electronics and motor using it. And it's not a field-oriented control. It's kind of a slip control type algorithm, but it appears to run fairly smoothly. Anyway, he arrived Wednesday night. I picked him up at the airport here in Cape and dropped him off Friday morning. His lady friend was up in the Great North here in the States defending her doctoral thesis, which seemed to imply that your health is a function of your sort of job satisfaction or your effectiveness, but an interesting concept. And having been through that with my wife, I advised him that he was doing exactly the right thing. Come down here and get lost for a few days. There's times where you're not needed, and don't add to the function while they're trying to get their thing done. It can take 10 or 12 years now to get a doctorate. So that was the visit with Damien, and we actually just hit it off hugely. I took him to Cracker Barrel for breakfast one day, and he loved that so much that he wanted to go back there for dinner, and we went to dinner, and the next morning he wanted to go back there for breakfast. So he's doesn't care to adventure too far after he's found a good meal. And but we hit it right off and had some lovely conversations. He is indeed a lovely man and very gentle and quite bright, and we just absolutely had a great time. He does tend toward the same inertia that I suffer from, and that is we'll agree to anything 3 months out, but it's kind of hard to get us to actually leave the house and hearth. But he has vowed to be here in the fall for EVCon and to deliver our keynote address, and and be available, and I think you'll all find it fascinating to meet this guy. I certainly did. And so it was the highlight of our week. It was very interesting, and it was very interesting going to Elon's concern for my ability to predict the end of range on my car. We were returning from the Cracker Barrel one evening, and he said, Jack, how often do you charge this Escalade? I said, once or twice a week. He said, so you just charged it a couple of days ago. I said, let me think. No, I haven't charged it this week at all. I'm not sure I charged it last week. And we're both looking at the numbers, and right then my voltage was plummeting into the 140s. And this is a 190 volt pack nominally. I said, man, that's low. Would you believe we didn't make it back to the shop? We actually rolled to a stop in an 8,000 pound vehicle. Would not go another foot. About 2.5 blocks from the shop, and had to call a flatbed truck to come pick us up and bring us to the shop. Those are 4-year-old batteries, and I was somewhat concerned. We measured some of them, and a couple were down as low as 0.7 and 0.8 volts. We put it on a charger. It took 429 amp hours, indicating I haven't really had much loss of capacity on a 400 amp hour cell that's 4 years old. And it took 429 amp hours. We checked the flow that we were reading against a good fluke clamp meter, and they matched. And so I believe we did put 429 amp hours into that pack, and we didn't lose a cell. A faint whiff of electrolyte, that sweet pear smell, a couple of glistening vent caps, but nothing really spewing, and nothing really swollen. And so it appears that we have escaped again based on the bottom balancing of the pack. And a bottom balancing of 400 amp hour cells is a non-trivial event. I only did it once, and I don't want to do it again. But it paid off again. This is the second time I've drained the pack. Once was from an errant heater relay or silicon-controlled rectifier, SDR type relay that had remained on after I switched it off and kept bleeding the pack through the liquid heater, and got it down to 35 volts, but it came back then as well. And so after 2 of those, we still have 429 amp hours of capacity in a 400 amp hour pack. So I would again encourage you that it is worth the effort on the bottom balancing, because it can save you a lot of money. That's a $34,000 pack that was fortunately given to us by Winston Battery Company. But I would have certainly been out had we lost it. And we didn't lose the cell, apparently, and I'm driving it, and it works fine. So that's, again, kind of a proven commodity, but we actually rolled it to a stop, waited 10 minutes, started it, rolled another 2 feet just to get off of the freeway, really. And we started up a little hill on the freeway, and it just died. And so the pack is so massive in that truck. We were trying to demonstrate 100 miles on an 8,000 pound vehicle. I mean, if I had it to do over again, that truck would be using 180 amp hour cells, not 400 amp hour cells. It'd be 700 pounds lighter, and we wouldn't be going that far. But that was the mission on that build, and we did it. But the downside is that rolling around town here, out to the airport and back and so on, it's too good. I don't need to charge every day. I don't even need to charge every week. But we managed to prove on Thursday night that I do need to charge it sometime or another. It has to be recharged or it quits being an electric car. And I think you'll find that your electric car has exactly the same problem, maybe not as extreme. It's almost like if you need to charge it every day, you'll keep it charged. If you don't, you might just quit watching the voltmeter closely enough and are driving around the town having a good time with the car and look down and you're out of energy. And that's pretty much what happened to me. But it was interesting that he just happened to ask about it, and in the next 5 minutes we were dead. And so that made a big impression on Damien, I'm sure, about the EVTV electric cars, but at least what not to do. We had received our JLD 505s, and I was all giddy about them last week until Paulo pointed out to me that he has a 1500 microfarad cap in here to allow you to save your amp hours and stuff when you lose power or shut this off. And then there's a little 100 puff cap, 100 microfarad cap in the power supply, and our assemblers in Shenzhen had gotten them backwards. And so I have 20 boards with the caps reversed. Damien swapped some around for me, reworking them. I'm not real good with a soldering iron, despite Paulo's classes. But he did take one home with him. Damien has 3 CHAdeMO fast charge stations within 15 miles of his house, and one of them is 3 miles away. And so probably for the land yacht, his daily driver, he's going to take the JLD 505, and he has already purchased from us a Yazaki inlet. And so he's going to put that together. We're going to work on some software for this thing, and I should be able to go back and forth with him, much as I do with Mark Weisheimer on the Ebenspraecher, or the volt charger, and he should be able to take it out to the charge station with his laptop and be emailing and us brainstorming software corrections while he's actually at the charge station. So my problem is we don't have a CHAdeMO within 100 miles of here, and so that's the issue. But we have the inputs, the outputs, the can, the temperature, the voltage, the current, everything in here to create a do-it-yourself CHAdeMO fast charge system using this, 2 contactors, a relay, and the Yazaki inlet. And that's about the whole story. And you'll be able to charge your car on CHAdeMO fast charge stations. As I said, we've purchased a Tesla inlet port and battery charger and cabling. It's not crazy talk for me to figure out what they're doing. We know that their charge protocol, like the Ebenspraecher, is a single wire 33.3 kbps can. And so meanwhile, Paulo Alameda in Lisbon, Portugal, is reworking our Arduino CAN-DUI logging board, which features 2 CAN bus channels. He's going to revise one of those to use a different chip that's actually designed for the single wire CAN, which is a 33.3 kbps signal, and LIN, the kind of a limited networking one-wire system that's limited to 19.2 kbps. And General Motors GM LAN consists of all of those: a 500 kbps CAN bus, a 33.3 kbps single wire CAN bus, and for door locks and window controls and that sort of thing, a LIN bus. And in fact, the Chevy Volt has two of the 500K buses, a single wire bus and a LIN bus and a radio bus. And so all that we got going on. But I'd say the big news this week for me personally is we're getting the JLD 505 in sufficient hardware shape to play some of this. We're revising the CAN Dewey so it can swing both ways, single wire CAN and dual wire CAN, or full CAN, I guess you would say. And I think we get LIN as a bonus. I'm not sure. And then we have acquired a entire Tesla Model S drivetrain. And I happen to have a Tesla Model S. Now, it would seem that I could press on the accelerator and capture the CAN traffic and put it in reverse and do the same thing, and do enough of that, we should be able to do it kind of Weisheimer fashion, just take the whole flow, feed it to the drivetrain, see if we can get it to spin, and then start throwing things out until it quits. And that's going to be kind of the process. That should leave us with some signals that control that motor and inverter. And then it's going to be a function of trying to divine how they work. Colin Kidder brilliantly worked out the polynomial CRC, cyclic redundancy check, security byte on the CODA UQM power phase. I was thrilled that he did, because it was curiously inelegant what I was going to do, but it will work. We can simply go from a very slow speed to a very harsh acceleration on the Model S, and do so in reverse as well, and build essentially a table of the known security bytes with various torque values, and simply use them. And we'll have to look them up. It's slower and less elegant, and it doesn't appeal to my sense of completion. But you'll never know. With a 84 megahertz multi-controller, it'll work fine. It won't slow anything down or do anything like that. It'll just be hugely ugly for a programmer. But again, with a big enough sample, it becomes also easier to divine what they actually used. And I'm convinced that if we can get enough of it and prove that it turns the wheels, that Colin Kidder can decode that security byte if necessary. And if not, you'll never know it. We'll just build a table of actual commands used in the car, and with enough of them, we can translate almost any throttle position to a effective command that's pretty close to what we want it to do. And so that's just a little insight into the approach to sometimes brute force approach used to reverse engineer the controller area network commands that drive these cars. And I think that's going to be a lot, as I've said many times, a central thrust of our work in the coming year to gain access to these I think I've just stumbled into a treasure with a Tesla Model S drivetrain. It's in a car that had 12,000 miles on it. A lot of damage that had nothing to do with the drivetrain. And so it should be perfectly good. I hope to have it on a bench and demonstrating it within the remainder of 2015. Should receive it next week. Stay with us. It just keeps getting better. Bada boom. Bada bing.